Hello there. Welcome to another Seeing Clearly with Charlotte Giblin. I'm going to tell you a story today which falls under the umbrella of the letting go chapter of my art practice. In my videos, I've talked a lot about the seeing clearly phase, which involves using your artist's eye to really understand what something looks like, looking at it honestly, and using that to develop your art skills, your artistic eye, while also then developing the ability to perhaps turn that eye towards yourself and see your own behaviour with a new, honest perspective, which is very challenging. But this story falls into the phases between my seeing clearly and my skills development, where I was really learning how to colour mix and starting to gain a great deal of confidence with my technique, but desperately wanting to learn how to experience the kind of artistic and creative freedom that I saw so many of my colleagues and art friends experience. Now, you might find that you fall quite clearly into one of the separate categories I'm going to describe. And this story might give you a new perspective on some of your friends' behaviour if this doesn't entirely resonate with you. But have you ever been given the advice, or have you given this advice to somebody else when they've asked about freeing up in their creative practice? The advice, just let the brush do the work, or just let the painting reveal itself. Now, I've been told both of those things. That was given to me as really helpful advice by well-meaning friends, and I had no idea what they were talking about. I'm a very logical person, despite having a very creative side to my nature, a curiosity, a spirituality, but I need specific words and images to help me understand how to try something new, how to change my behavior. Words are very important to me, and the clarity with words, that's really important. And when I was trying to develop my painting skills and loosen up, I was finding it I was really comparing myself to a lot of the art that I saw around, and starting to envy that freedom of expression that I perceived to be in the paintings. Not quite just the full splishy, splashy abstract, but being able to make marks without overthinking things. And I'm a real overthinker and an analytical thinker. Really, Charlotte. But I make no apologies for that. I love the fact that I've always thought a lot about different things. And it's part of my nature, my curiosity. It's part of my inquisitive self. And I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Being over-analytical can sometimes be thrown as a slur. I take it as a compliment. But I wanted to move away from the really tight, accurate drawings and paintings that I was doing, my portraits. And all of this work was getting a lot of praise, but it felt like I was being quite tight. And I also wanted to learn how to let go. If you've seen any of my videos before where I've talked about aspects of control within my past, my mother's anorexia, a lot of emotional control throughout different areas of my life, I knew that control was quite a serious issue for me, and it kept coming back up. And one of the reasons why I was having difficulty letting go with my art practice was because of this sense of control. And part of that was never wanting to experiment with any kinds of drugs. That's never been my thing. And so a lot of artist friends and people I knew who were producing the most incredible works were quite open about the fact that they would be taking different forms of drugs or drinking before they were doing their artwork, which helped them to switch off a certain part of their brain which they felt was hindering their practice. And that was just a terrifying notion for me. It's never interested me. And I thought, well, there must be another way that I can try and express myself creatively without going down one of these routes that I find quite uncomfortable. So I would ask friends, well, can you help me understand, what your practice is? How are you achieving these wonderful loose results? And if you want to know the kind of art that I was doing at the time, on my website under the rare works drop down in my art gallery, you'll see that there are a whole series of really brightly coloured twisted tree roots and sort of neon tones, and very bright actually. So colour was never an issue for me, and pushing bright colours was never an issue. And all of the twisted, curved tree stumps, they are rendered beautifully, almost like graphic cartoon work, with stripes of light and shade, because the light and shade was extremely important to me. And as a teacher, I had constantly a teacher's voice going on in my head. And at the time that I was moving through this transitional phase, I was teaching realistic drawing. So I had a very specific eye and a vision for what I was expecting from my students' work. And that was also hampering me from doing any kind of loose work or something which didn't look real. I would have this voice, this critical voice, just here, always like, oh, that's a bit rubbish, or trying to, again, tighten up, and the teacher in me was wanting to produce something very specific. So when friends said to me, completely sincerely, and a number of different people that I know had expressed the concept of allowing the brush to do the work for you, letting the painting reveal itself, look at the paints, let the paints tell you which one to use. So I started to experiment with this, taking this quite literally with my logical head. And I don't know if you've seen the Sorcerer's Apprentice by Walt Disney in Fantasia, the Mickey Mouse cartoon, where the mops and the brooms start coming to life. He uses his magic to start cleaning up the studio, or wherever he is, and it all just gets completely out of hand, and all the different inanimate objects are coming to life. And so I went into my studio, had this huge canvas in front of me, because I thought, go big. This is also what I'm supposed to do. Get a really big canvas. And so I stood there and I thought, right, so let the brush do the work. Okay, so allow the brush to do the work. So the brush, I need to allow the brush to create the painting for me. So I stood there, right, okay, so what am I supposed to do now? Right, maybe, do I need to do some deep breathing, perhaps a little meditation? Or I'm not even quite sure what I'm supposed to be doing for meditation. And I would stand there in front of the canvas for a little while and not really looking at the brush. I was actually, I was quite frightened about what was going to happen. I genuinely thought that the brush was going to start moving. That if I was the conduit, I just held the brush lightly, maybe it would come to life and start creating this amazing painting. But I was actually quite fearful of that, because that is very much out of my control. And I was excited by the idea, like, oh, this is magic. There's going to be some real magic happening. And also quite terrified. And so I was standing there, I was trying to distance myself from the brush and holding it, and okay, well, nothing's happening yet. Maybe, do I need to hold it a bit higher, or, stand on one leg? Am I not quite, is the aerial not quite reaching up to the spirits? And I don't think I've mentioned yet that I was 41, at this point in my career. And I thought, no, expected the brush to start moving on its own accord. And there was a part of me which imagined that, you know, the brush was going to be doing this, and my body was going to be pulled around as the brush did whatever it needed to be allowed to do. And I stood there for quite a while. My arm was getting a bit tired, starting to sweat a bit, and thinking, really, really hope my partner doesn't come into the studio, because I'll look like I'm having a breakdown in front of this massive blank canvas, holding the brush like this, and, you know, a little bit warily. And I thought, well, maybe am I listening to it in the wrong way? Perhaps it's actually going to tell me something. So I was like this, like, seriously, 41. Oh, okay, no, it's not telling me, not giving me any messages. I really expected something dramatic to happen. The changes that I have been expecting all of my life, because I've seen so many films and love cinema as a medium, and nothing is, well, rarely are there subtle clues in films. And you always have the booming voiceover in a film, which can help explain what's going on. And when I was looking at my array of paints in front of me, when I thought, well, the brush isn't doing what it wants to do, and so maybe I need to go to the paints first. And I thought that maybe if I listened closely enough, there would be a big booming voice that came down from somewhere saying, "Choose the dark blue." And I would go, fantastic, thank you very much. I'll pick the dark blue. And that didn't happen either. I didn't hear anything. I wasn't given any signs. Nothing fell over in the studio. Nothing dramatic happened. So I really looked at my paints, and I thought maybe one of them would, if I picked them up, I would hear a "pick me." I really did. I genuinely thought, I took this advice literally, that the paints would talk to me. The paints would tell me. And when someone says to me, let the paints tell you which one to use, tell you. I mean, for me, that's words. That's hearing. That's a visual clue. That's something obvious. It's not a little tweak of intuition or just a knowing. Somebody's going to tell me what to do. These paints are going to put their hands up or fall off the table. There's going to be a really strong signal. So I stood there for a good half an hour, looking at the paints, holding my brush, getting a tired arm, and then thinking, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I channel something through the brush? And why aren't the paints talking to me? There must be something wrong. I mean, half an hour is a relatively short period of time, but it feels like an absolute age when you're expecting your brush to move of its own accord. And then I started thinking, because it was quite quiet and I was starting to feel a little bit weird, I thought, well, what if this is just one massive joke and the brush, whatever comes through me and reveals itself onto the canvas, what if it's absolute rubbish? What if this is nothing to do with the spirit of Da Vinci coming through me, but some failed artist having a bit of a laugh, some spirit jester saying, oh, we'll show her because she thinks that, this is going to be easy. So let's just, do something rubbish. And then I started thinking, well, if I let the brush do the work and the painting is absolutely terrible, people are going to think I did it. And that's going to be really embarrassing. How is that going to affect my career? So I started thinking about all these different things. Quite a long time had passed by now. And I felt really stupid. And I felt like I was being left out of the club. I felt like I was not a real artist because for some reason I couldn't hear the paint and I wasn't allowing the brush to do the work. So I left the studio and went for a walk and was quite angry and frustrated, and came back into the studio the next day and tried the same thing again. No results. And eventually I went into the house and spoke to my partner, and I felt like an absolute idiot child explaining what I was trying to do. I felt so embarrassed about this. And he said to me, well, it sounds like you're taking this advice too literally. Really? And he said, how about, doesn't it just mean switching off judgmental voices and just having a play? And I thought, oh my goodness, yeah, he's right. Now, why hadn't my artist friends, been able to explain it to me like that? So, first of all, let's just take to one side my own behaviour and expectations of what was going to happen, because that's a whole other story, but very much under the umbrella of my issues with control, which have very much dissipated with this whole program of seeing clearly and skill development and letting go. Don't have that problem anymore with my art. What a relief. But at the time, still a major issue. So if we just put that to one side, let's just focus on our interpretation of instructions, advice, the advice and the instructions we give to other people, which we have control over. We can't control how somebody says something to us, of course. They're picking their words, they're choosing the tone in which they say it, they're choosing what to leave out and what to put in. But it's up to us to decide whether that instruction, that information, makes any sense. And if we don't understand something, to ask for another way of describing it, explaining it. It's one of the most important aspects of being a teacher for me. And it's one of the reasons why I became very successful at teaching art, because I had experienced such difficulty with understanding simple instructions from a creative person or people who thought it was really obvious just to say something in one way. And I've learned for all of the different elements of my art practice, when I'm passing on that information to my students, I've learned 4 or 5 different ways of describing each thing. And you can tell instantly if somebody understands something or not. I think in my case, I so believed that I had some divine creative gift that obviously I was going to be able to just switch into this magic creative light shaft or whatever it was that I thought my friends were part of, and that I would have no problems with it. So I didn't ask for it to be described in any other way. So think about incidents, occasions where you have been given instruction, not understood it, and then been embarrassed or afraid to ask for it to be explained in a different way. Why is that? In my case, I didn't want to look stupid. I also thought that I knew it and I was going to be all right doing that. And after I'd tried, I felt even more stupid and left out of the club and didn't want to go back to these friends and admit that in my eyes, I wasn't as good as them, or I was missing out somehow. The comparison, the negative comparisons that we lay on ourselves is just terrible, really is terrible. But we can do something about that. We can ask for other ways of explaining things, or find, just ask different people, different voices, look for, it's why learning from a whole group of people, a whole lot of different teachers, reading different books, hearing different voices is so important for each of us, because you can pick different words, different phrases, different actions from each teacher, from each book, from each self-help notion, from each idea about how to transform your life. That was exactly the same for me. You know, I read so many different books, and not one theory, not one process ticked all the boxes for me, which is why I needed to create my own version from all sorts of different sources and talking to all kinds of different people. Because we do find then that there'll be one click with the way someone describes something and someone explains something to us. And equally be aware of the words that you use to explain something to somebody else, and try and judge whether they have understood your advice, or whether there's a little bit of flash of doubt there, and maybe ask if they have understood. Do they need you to explain it in a different way? Do they need you to demonstrate, to show it? Because we all learn in very slightly different ways. And if you don't want to explain something more clearly to somebody else, why is that? Why do some people want to withhold information? Because in my experience, they can be afraid of the competition that can be created, even in, especially in, well, the art world, full of human beings. And I have met many artists who won't share their techniques, who won't share their processes, because they want to hang on to those techniques as if they let them go, they're afraid that somebody else is going to do something better with it and ostensibly make more money. That seems to be what it comes down to. It's the fear of somebody profiting from your idea and doing more with it. And unfortunately, so much comes back to money and earning. And a lot of us have lost that joy of collaboration and sharing. And a massive amount of it comes down to self-confidence and being able to say with absolute sincerity, no, please, this is how I have learned. These are my techniques. Please experiment with them, have a play, do what you can with these techniques, because they don't belong to each of us. I mean, I can remember somebody saying to me when I worked on plywood, and I had beveled the edge of the plywood in a certain way, and it was a really nice effect, and I had created a fake border around which looked like a frame, just with masking tape. And an artist said to me, don't ever tell anybody the kind of plywood you're using or the angle that you've beveled it at. And I thought, oh my goodness, if anybody wants to know this information, I will be the first person to tell them how to do it. Please, if you can do something better with it, go for it. It's as if you can't tell somebody your techniques in case they paint on canvas. I mean, who doesn't paint on canvas at some stage? We're losing the trust and the generosity of collaboration. And this is one of the reasons why I feel some people withhold the information about how to do something, how to achieve a certain technique, or how to get better, because they actually don't want the other person to learn. And this competition is so damaging overall. It's good to have a little bit of competitiveness so you help each other to grow, but not when you're trying to cut someone off at the knees by giving them bad advice. So I don't think I was given bad advice, and I don't think that the people who told me to let the brush do the work, thought that I would struggle with that. But I did. And it's just a good idea to always be aware of the words we're using, how we're saying them. And if we are saying something with a negative intent, really look at yourself and ask, well, why am I doing that? What am I actually afraid of? And vice versa. And always ask if you don't understand something. It's your responsibility. It was my responsibility to try and find a different way to problem solve in a way that I understand. And so I asked my partner. He was able to give me a much clearer explanation of this whole idea of letting go, which satisfied me. And I went back into the studio and I thought, well, I still have my teacher's voice. I still have all of this critical self-judgment hanging over me, which is commenting on my work at all times. So what am I going to do? Now I have this new phrase in my head of switching off the voices, and that is the idea, and playing, having some fun. So what did I do? Took off my glasses. Oh my goodness. Now I am really short-sighted, cannot see you at all, right? But when I take my glasses off, I can see like that close to the canvas, and if I really squint, perhaps that's what it was. It was to do with the position I had my face in that I was able to actually work. But because of the size of the canvas, what this meant was I was removing the critical eye of perfectionism that I had with my work prior to these paintings. And I had to work quickly because I was starting to get a bit of a headache from not having my glasses on. And it was a really big canvas. And so I was squelching the paint about. I wasn't waiting for any voices. What I did was I just took the nearest paints to me, and still retaining the technical skill-based knowledge that I have with colour mixing. So I knew I wasn't going to get mud. I was still thinking quite clearly about being able to be loose and let go, but also get some results which would excite me, where it's always about light and dark for me, always, and really pushing the light in any of my paintings. So I wanted to go bright and I wanted to go dark. And I was using my just the three primary colours, just had 3 paints and white, and absolutely just great big marks on the canvas. And I started to see that I was creating tree forms. I mean, trees have been in my paintings forever. And I mean, the previous series, as I explained earlier, was tree stumps and roots, twisted roots, but done in a very neat way. And these were like all over the place. And I stood back after, I don't know, half an hour of frantically painting and not overthinking it. And one of the ways in which I do that now is I put on music, quite loud music, or something that I can sing along to. So my brain is engaged with the words, or I'm listening to the music. And so I'm not thinking too much about the painting beyond the colours and the light. So I'm not overthinking what I'm actually doing. But I have to show you, I just have it on an A4 piece of paper because that's all that's left of it. I have to show you what I actually did, right? So this is the painting that I produced. Now remember that it was massive, and look at these like creepy fingers of branches. Absolutely, like, what is going on with this painting? And as I stood back, this is enormous. Next video, I'm going to show you what I did with this and how it just demonstrated a complete transformation of myself when I stood back and got some perspective. And you'll see how massive the painting is because I have the next version of this. But these creepy fingers of this creepy forest really distressed me, because I'd had this image of myself as this really positive, forward-thinking, jolly person who could accomplish anything. I had great social life and no problems, of course. And what I was hoping to channel through me, what I thought my subconscious work would be like, is not like this. There's suddenly this creepy forest with the cut down tree and all of the fingers kind of getting at the cut down tree. This pointed out to me that there was clearly something going on up here that I had not yet been prepared to address. It tells a story of feeling got at, feeling trapped, this nightmarish, fingers constantly searching, scratching. It's like something out of a horror film, beyond the lovely bright light on the other side. But how are you going to get there? Because all the branches are in the way, going to claw at my hair. And my hair was a lot longer then, so it could easily have got tangled. So that was really disappointing. My first experience of letting go was very alarming, but it helped me to understand something, not only about the language that I need and how literally I take everything. It helped me to understand that I still had some serious concerns with control. And it also helped me to realize that I can problem solve by stepping back, getting a different perspective, asking different voices, and finding my own way around the problem. And this is key for you. Point. If you don't understand something, get a whole load of different ideas from different sources and work out your own version. Because we are so vulnerable to comparison. And if we feel stupid, if we feel inferior, it can just be so damaging. And all it can take to boost our self-confidence enormously is another way of describing something, another set of words, another opinion, or eradicating all of that and just being in a room on your own where you're not going to be disturbed and having a play. All right. Now, that's probably made you feel a lot better about yourself, hasn't it? And I'll come back in the next one, show you what happened after that. Oh my goodness. What a journey that was. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.